Before jumping straight into sketching, a mood board helps you explore and refine your ideas visually. It's like a creative compass, gathering colours, textures, references, and emotions all in one place. By seeing these elements together, you start to spot patterns, themes, and new directions you might not have noticed before. This clarity helps you make more intentional design choices and keeps your artwork consistent as it develops. In short, a strong mood board turns scattered inspiration into a focused, evolving design vision. With that being said, let's get on and create our mood board. In Procreate, what you want to do is either drag and drop images from your browser. So to do this, swipe up from the bottom of the screen, select Safari or Google or Chrome. You can then drag this to the side of your screen, which will open a split screen for you. From here, you can then Google whatever you need. So just touch into the search bar. I've searched here just for rogue character designs, just to kind of get a basic idea of what I'm looking for. Once you have found one that you like, if you select an image, you can then press and hold down on the picture that you like with your finger. This will select it, and then you can simply drag it over onto Procreate and it will import the picture. Another way to import images is if you click the spanner in the top left and scroll down to insert photos, you can then collect from your photo library and import it that way instead. So let's continue researching for our mood board. So again, to access the web browser, if you pull up from the bottom of the screen with your fingers, select your browser, drag it over to the left or to the right. Then to expand this, if you hit the middle, you can then swipe it over to the right and see the whole page. So here I'll use a mixture of websites to collect my images. Google or whatever browser you're using is great for a very quick overview. So here I've just searched for rogue character clothing, and I can already see that a lot of the features are long cloaks, dark colours, lots of leather. I can also see that some recurring weapons like swords and bows are coming out. So I can very, very quickly get a scope on what a rogue is for my character. I would also then go and have a look for references for poses. So one that I like to use is the pose archives. These have often give you very, very clear references, quite expressive. So you can draw inspiration to build character and the way that your design and your character might stand. Another website is Pexels. Again, this is a free website and you can search for specific things. Here I've typed in looking for leather, and you can have a scroll. It works very much like other websites like Pinterest. And I like these because they give you real photo references. And it doesn't seem to be as much AI on there. So great for looking for materials and interesting photography. Same as Unsplash. You can search kind of vague terms, so rogue, renaissance. I think here I typed in fantasy. So I can get close-ups on things, how like chainmail works and how armor works. And that way, being able to take from real life examples will help you build some reality into your designs and how your costumes might actually work in the real world and how it all comes together in your mind. I would say my main website that I would use is actually Pinterest. So say we want some leather fantasy armor. Just because this is great for examples on, again, very interesting, quite stylized stuff. You may find that quite a lot of Pinterest is AI. You can now go through in the settings and turn that off so that you get more photos and real world examples. I like how if you select things here, it then will give you more examples that are quite similar in the same world. So if you've got quite strong ideas, so I had a feeling of maybe this character could be a rogue, but also royalty. So I'd be looking for examples that are more embellished, give me the sense of there being some royal elements there. There's a richness to the character. Once you've gone ahead and gathered all your images, you can then put them together in whatever order suits your project. So you might be looking specifically for colours, you might be looking specifically at environments or textures. So whatever best fits your project and makes sense in your head, go for it. For this rogue character, I've made a few different categories. I've got just rogue characteristics, all photography based, just to kind of get an idea of the sense of the character. I've gone through and done some research on what other artists and illustrators have interpreted a rogue as, to see how they've pushed that then as an idea. I've also got my research on clothing that is for myself and starting to put my own ideas together in terms of what I think is interesting. And then I've also got more specific ideas based off this royal element I want to put onto my rogue character. So here I'm looking for things like the stance. So this rogue seems to have a very good balance. You know, they're a fighter. A lot of these poses I'm seeing, they've got a really strong stance that feels solid. They feel trained. You also get these examples where they feel stealthy and are masters of their weapons. So I'm also seeing a lot of flow in these poses. So as well as them being quite sturdy and robust characters, there's also a sense of flow and fluidity, which would be really nice to replicate in my own sketches. Through other artists and artist references, I'm now seeing even more character come through. So like before, these characters feel even more dynamic. So what I'm seeing is an exaggeration on the shapes. A lot of these artists are using the clothing, like the capes and the hoods of these rogues, to create really interesting shapes. So for example, this one, we've got lots of kind of triangular shapes going on here for the shape language, even on the hips. I've got examples of how some of the fabrics are flowing, but then you've got this kind of stiff leather. So it's interesting to see how other artists are interpreting this rogue character and what I need to make my rogue stand out. So going into the details of some of these, we can see really nice examples of layering of their armor and how all their clothing works. As well as, again, very, very strong poses. These characters seem very self-assured, and I'm getting that just from first glance. It's reading immediately, so I need to see how they do it and how I can make my character read immediately. Then I kind of go into more specific research. So I was thinking about how my rogue character could be a mashup between a rogue and a royal. So my research took me down a path of looking at royalty and how their clothing was, and trying to find period accurate pieces. So I can see the textures. So we've got this kind of padding and how the buckles all work. And this is super interesting for shapes. I can see how things might be embellished, where I can create elements of really interesting design. I really liked how these rogues had quite a lot of armor that was understated. So maybe it's just a neck piece or a collar, but that has that embellishment and design to kind of make it feel more rich. I'm also looking again for inspirations on shapes and how they're interesting. So this triangular piece really stood out to me, or how this draped over the shoulders quite softly really stood out to me as well. So you've got the difference between something quite angular or something quite soft, and I'm trying to think about how that would affect the character of my design. Something more straight edged would maybe look more harsh, something softer, maybe it'd feel more feminine. And then from this, I would also be looking at, if I was sketching, keeping in mind textures. So the creases and the leather and how those come together, as opposed to really tight clothing that has maybe no creases at all. And then finally, I really wanted to delve deeper into this idea of there being the princess or the royal element to it. So I started thinking about the robe and its headwear and this hood and this kind of disguised element of it. And then from my research, I was able to find these really interesting old headpieces, and all these shapes are so imaginative, and maybe I can work those in as well. So as you can see, the kind of mood boards all very different ideas, and bringing them together so I can then organize my thoughts. And when it comes to the sketching, I'll be able to grab pieces and really push the ideas behind them. Like maybe I could use this as a kickoff point and be like, great, we'll see where that idea takes us. But you've also got the images to guide you on what shapes work together or what ideas might work together. So what makes a successful mood board? Organising and focusing your inspiration into a cohesive aesthetic. This is super useful because then when you're referring back to your mood board, you can find things easily. So as you can see, all of my images are very clear. They're kind of grouped together in ways that make sense in terms of these are armour, these are weapons, these are clothes. And it makes it easy for me to find that inspiration again. A good character design begins with strong references. When you're gathering references, make sure that they're not blurry, that they're not generic as well. So make sure they are inspiring to you, whether or not that be something very small or an overall kind of image. Use varied research from photographs and artwork. Look for real-world examples to ground your designs and enhance your ideas. I find that working from photographs is super helpful, as then I can look to see how things work in the real world. So how a buckle might actually do up, how armor lands on top of each other, and how things layer. And that kind of sets your design in reality. If things don't look like they go together, or that they wouldn't work in the real life, it might break your character's aesthetic. It might break the design. Look for interesting shapes, patterns, and textures. So maybe your images aren't just whole images. Maybe when you're looking through your mood board, you're actually zooming right in and seeing, oh, this is a really intricate design. Maybe I can replicate these shapes and use these elements on a different scale, or even just in a completely new way. And make sure you create something that inspires you, that you can return to throughout your sketching progress. What you want to do is be able to come back to your mood board, see the overall style that you were going for, and help it influence your sketch work going forwards. If you don't find it inspiring, then you probably won't end up with an inspiring design at the end. And when you're putting together your mood board, start thinking about the personality of your character. What shapes, silhouettes, colours are jumping out, and what do you need to include? You'll probably find that when you put your mood board together, that when you step back from it, you see things that are reoccurring themes. So for me, I was seeing these kind of collars pop up, and the way that the straps and the leather kind of come across each other was really standing out to me. I picked out a lot of examples with this cross-hatching and this padding. So those are things that I was finding very inspiring, and will probably be things that I take forward into the sketching process. Mood boards are more than just pretty pictures. They're a foundation of clear, consistent design. They guide your creative choices, keep your ideas focused, and help bring your character's world to life. By starting every project with one, your designs will always have direction and depth.